When you start your day on 99.3 Nigeria Info, you can be sure you started it right. Absolutely on the right way. Welcome to this part of the Morning Crossfire, which we call the Front Pages. This is where we look at the stories that have made it through to the front of the newspapers today. We have here the Guardian newspaper, our media partner, Daily Trust, the Nation newspaper. Vanguard is also here on my side of the table. And if you look to the other side, it's got some.
Yeah, I have this day here. Yes, I've got some. I have the Punch, I have Daily Sun, and Daily Independent.
You are welcome to the show. We're streaming live on Facebook, also on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. Do a quick search and you can find us there. You can watch us and also leave your comment and engage with other viewers up on our socials. You can also reach us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM. Are you out of Lagos? Are you moving out? Anywhere you are, you can listen on our website to all of our programs. That's at nigeriainfo.fm, nigeriainfo.fm. Don't miss anything, because you can listen to us anywhere you are. Right. Gbolahan Olojede is joining us on the show this morning. Gbolahan, good morning again.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Happy to be here again.
You're welcome. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
I'm Sheriff Quadry. Let's begin with a lead story on the front pages of the papers this morning. We start with our media partners, shall we?
Yes, let's start with this one. It's the banner headline on The Guardian. South Africa begs as exit of Nigerians hurts the economy. On the chit chat today, you guys were not so nice. Most of them said, no way, we're not taking that apology. But South Africa is begging. There are three riders on this one on The Guardian. We'll discuss compensation on October 3rd, says Ramaphosa. This October meeting still. We can't do anything before there. Obasanjo wants xenophobic attacks reported to AU. 319 more Nigerians to return to Lagos today. If you move over to the Daily Trust, the story is also here. Xenophobia. South Africa apologizes to Nigeria. Also, the Nation newspaper, Buhari accepts South Africa's apology for xenophobic attacks. So he has accepted on your behalf. Ramaphosa begs compensation likely. Obasanjo seek AU action. It also makes it as a banner of the Vanguard. Ramaphosa apologizes. This got 5 riders. Special envoy says more than 50 arrested over attacks. Federal government urges governors to integrate returnees. Another batch of about 320 arriving today. Obasanjo writes Buthelezi asks Nigeria, others to report South Africa to the AU. South African officials accuses Nigeria of overreacting to attacks. Issue of compensation up for discussion October 3rd when Buhari and Ramaphosa meet. That's it on the Vanguard.
Moving on to this day newspaper, xenophobia. Nigeria, South Africa mend fences as Ramaphosa apologizes. Riders, Buhari promises more robust ties. Obasanjo lists ways to end crisis. This day newspaper. Moving on to the Punch. South Africa apologizes for xenophobic attacks. Envoy meets Buhari. The Punch for you. From Daily Sun, attack evacuation of Nigerians. South Africa begs Nigeria. Riders, Ramaphosa's special envoy in Abuja apologizes to Buhari. Obasanjo urges FG, others to report South Africa to AU. The Daily Sun is the paper. From Daily Independent newspaper, just below the nameplate, xenophobic attacks. South African government apologizes to Nigerians. Riders says over 50 suspects arrested. Buhari visits South Africa October 3. Compensation plan on the table. 320 Nigerians returned from SA today. Lawyers insist on compensation. The Daily Independent newspaper.
Oh, well, apologies are in order, no doubt about that. But that is just the beginning. And it's important we don't allow that to get into our heads. That, they've come to apologize. No. It's just the start of everything that is to be. It's like when you see, say, a typical wife beater. After beating the wife, he comes in the morning.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. I
didn't know what come over me.
And what happens the following week? Another battering. So we have to be careful that the necessary steps that will guarantee the safety of our people and that this kind of occurrence never happen again is what we must follow through to the letters.
But it looks like South African government, and this is not to sound like a hater of some sort, have failed and maybe helpless in controlling xenophobic attacks. in that country. Yes, there are reports that people have been arrested, over 50 of them. But is that a guarantee that there won't be any repetition in the nearest future?
I don't think they were helpless. I don't think so. In fact, it looks more as if it was a state policy, as if the government knew this was going on. They were not willing to take aggressive. If you look at some of the aggressors, they were even the law enforcement agents.
Right.
So it makes it look as if, this is a state policy.
The argument about compensation, though, I've asked this on the show before. So if South Africa says this is not xenophobia and so we can't pay for the losses, again, the question I've asked, many of these businesses should have been insured. If they're insured, the insurance companies would pay for their losses. So what exactly are we asking for compensation for their flight ticket back to Nigeria, for those businesses that insurance companies will also pay for, which is probably why South Africa says we can't pay compensation.
You're making an assumption about insurance.
Yeah, they are all based on assumption.
Yes.
If they do have insurance.
Because don't forget that while South Africa's play in Nigeria is on the large corporate side, in the flip side, it's Papa Mama shop. They are unstructured, informal businesses that are mostly there for us. You can't even remember. Can you name one large corporate, Nigerian corporate that you know that is in South Africa? Most likely you will scratch your head before you can arrive at anything.
Right.
So the large corporates might have structured a way of ensuring or mitigating their risk. The unstructured, informal environment, there's not much of insurance going on. So when you uproot those kind of businesses, you dislocate the people, there should be some sort of compensation. That is the reality.
I hope that would also not get South Africans angry. They already think that the foreign nationals are being pampered on their land. So if you're giving them new businesses while they believe they don't have work to do, don't we see another cycle starting off somewhere?
They have to manage it properly. There are ways to do these things, and if they are genuine about making this happen, they know how to handle
Former
it.
President Obasanjo said that Nigeria should approach the AU.
As if you've been sleeping before.
Like they didn't know what was going on.
So AU did not know what was going on.
They were waiting for someone to come tell them.
The 7
officially.
countries that South Africa is visiting, or has been visiting, they are all members of AU. So it's not as if AU is ignorant of what is going on.
So here's the thing. A lot of arguments have been put forward as to the dwindling image of Nigeria as the, quotes now, giant of Africa on the continent. So we have the AU, we have the ECOWAS. None of these bodies have said anything as regards the attack on foreigners in South Africa. Pardon me, please correct me if I'm wrong. And now Nigeria closed the borders, and the first thing ECOWAS is saying Nigeria should open the borders, so as to continue the tradition of integrating Africans, especially on the sub-region, in the sub-region here, West Africa. The AU on the other side, when it comes to xenophobic attacks, hasn't said anything whatsoever. What could be responsible for this? Is Nigeria really stepping up to the plate when it comes to playing its role on the continent?
Nigeria, for my entire adult life, has remained a huge potential. We have a potential to be this, a potential to be that, a potential to be that. The question is, when will this potential become a reality? That is the real fundamental question of this country called Nigeria. We remain the bride of everybody by virtue of the population. If you have a market of 200 million people, even from abroad, people still want to come here.
Right.
That is a reality.
Right. There's a big market
There's a big market here. For West Africa, pull Nigeria out of that market and the whole thing is in shambles. Totally in shambles. Lagos alone, Lagos has a population that is about 4 West African countries put together. So you know what we're talking about now. So on that level, Nigeria remains a very influential country.
Right.
But on living up to the potential for the capacity of Nigeria to become the true giant of Africa, we have not done anything in that direction.
Some people were even arguing during the funeral of Mugabe, finally on this one, that even Vice President Yemi Osinbajo wasn't invited to speak. I mean, he was just one of the attendees. He didn't give a speech. And I saw Nigerians on Twitter saying, oh, Nigeria, we're not even giving a speech at the funeral. Other countries...
And, well, I don't know about that, but the truth is that if we're going to be truly relevant, we have to show it beyond the giant of Africa,
Right.
beyond the 200 million.
Right.
If you take that South Africa, for example, that we're talking about,
Right.
while we were doing revenue of 7 trillion, South Africa is doing close to 40 trillion. There are only 60 million people in South Africa. So where is your respect going to come from?
Let's see how we might be probably able to make our economy look better. Buhari appoints Soludo, others as advisors, and disbands Osinbajo's team. This is on the front page of The Guardian. On the Daily Trust, so you find this making the banner headline. Buhari replaces Osinbajo-led economic management team. Salami, Soludo, Ojowu, Sagagi in new council. Also on The Nation, President names economic team. And you find their names here on The Nation. Also on The Vanguard, Soludo, Ruwane, Doyin, Salami make new Economic Advisory Council.
Right. From this day newspaper, Buhari replaces economic management team with advisory council. Writers name Salami, Soludo, Ruwane, others as members to report directly to president. This day is a paper. From the Punch newspaper, Salami Soludo panel replaces Osinbajo economic team. That's the Punch for you today. From the Daily Sun, Buhari appoints Salami Soludo Ruwane, others into Economic Council. The Sun with that report. And yes, from Daily Independent newspaper, Buhari dissolves Osinbajo's EMT, appoints Salami Soludo Ruwane as to Advisory Council. Ryder makes deputy head of Atiku's policy team vice chairman. That's Daily Independent for you.
Arguably, this is one of the major things that the vice president was doing. But let me tell you, the details are right here on the Guardian newspaper. President Buhari yesterday replaced the economic management team headed by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo with an economic advisory council. The new ESC, which would report directly to the president, will be chaired by an economist, Professor Doyin Salami. Buhari's special advisor on media publicity gave out a statement saying that the ESC would advise the president on economic policy matters, including fiscal analysis, economic growth, and a range of internal and global economic issues, working with the relevant cabinet members and heads of monetary and fiscal agencies. Moving forward, the members of this team are Dr. Mohammed Sagagi, who will be the vice chairman, Professor Ode Ojowu, who's a member, Dr. Shehu Yaya, member, Dr. Iyabo Masha, member, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, member, Mr. Bismarck Ruwani, member, and Dr. Mohammed Adaya Salisu as the secretary. The chairman, of course, is Professor Doyin Salami. The initial EMT was chaired by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and had the following members: Minister of Finance, Minister of Budget and National Planning, Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, Minister of Trade, Industry, Trade and Investment, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Information and Culture, Governor of the Central Bank, Special Advisor to the President on Economic Matters, Director General of the Budget Office, Director General of the Debt Management Office, and Director General of the National Bureau of Statistics. So we've scrapped all these people and then replaced them with the others.
I think it's a phenomenal, probably the best decision this administration ever made. Now, there's nothing wrong with that the former team, beyond the fact that that team is made up of people who want to have a job to protect. CBN governor,
right,
finance minister,
right.
That
people in the cabinet.
You think they will be telling
government
themselves
already.
the truth in that meeting?
You can't get it. You can't get it. You can't get it. That's it. So it's more or less like within the same government, you have some people. These are statutory members of that committee.
Right.
So you just pick them and you sit down, you discuss. That's fine. Whatever you even discuss and agree, then you have to take it down to the president. Is it not?
Right.
What we have now is probably the best economic team in the last couple of decades. And we have to be careful, especially the media, not to politicize this.
Right.
Because I've started seeing things like Osinbajo's team scrapped. Those are political end to matters. What we have at hand is a serious economic crisis that requires the right level of skills and competence, which can be put on the table by this eminent team. For the media, for Nigerians, all we need to do is to support this team in any way and every way to succeed. We need a turnaround of the economy. And I think it's beginning to drill home, even to the president himself, that look, this economy is not at its best. We're not turning the turbines as we're
Right.
supposed to do.
Right.
And that is why you have this committee coming into.
So when you have hardliners such as Soludo, Rwani, Professor Adewuni,
Doing Salami. Yeah.
you have these technocrats in these cabinets, and these guys, like you said, they don't have anything to protect when it comes to jobs. They already are okay in their respective lives and ways. Do you, if they give advice to the federal government, do you think that whatever the advice is, hard, politically correct, or politically incorrect, the federal government is ready to toe the line?
It's an interesting question because that is the real meat of the matter. It's an advice. I can decide to take your advice,
Right.
or not
Or throw
take
it back
the
at you.
advice. But at the same time, for the president to have arrived at this junction, I believe he's ready and willing to listen. We're actually on the teters. We need to get things moving. We need to turn around this economy.
Let's talk about moving the economic
it.
further. This headline is also similar to on the front page of the Vanguard. Federal government plans 30-year economic development plan. This is coming from the finance minister and says that new VAT is meant to aid new minimum wage implementation. There, they keep saying that. They keep saying that. They keep saying that. Let's see the 30-year economic development plan, page 8 of the Vanguard. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, she dropped the hint at the media briefing. Okay, it's just a hint. She said the plan became imperative because of the Vision 2020 and the current administration's economic growth, recovery growth plan. Okay, so there isn't a plan to paper yet. It's just...
Yeah. This is a step in the right direction, though I don't know if we can handle 30 years. I would have thought maybe 20 might be more like it, reasonably so.
Or even 15.
Or even 15. It's like it's going to be like a visioning document.
Right.
You want to see into the future because one of our main problems is the cycle, our planning cycle, short thinking, 4 years mentality of a government. It doesn't work.
I'm not even sure we think 4 years. I think we think yearly.
You know,
Like, can we just kill through this year?
We have the medium term
Expenditure
plan. Yes,
framework.
yes,
And
we do.
we follow it.
But it has to go beyond that because even that 4 year period we're talking about, if you plant cocoa, I think at least the old cocoa used to take 4 years to mature. So if I'm trying to transform using cocoa, I want to transform the economy of Osun State using cocoa. It means that by the time the administration is over, my first plant of cocoa are just beginning to bear fruit.
The problem with that, though, is if a new government comes in, they're not bound to then stick to that plan. So,
you know, but if we have a visioning document, even local government, I've seen some, well, in other climes anyway, people who are prepared, local government, counties who are prepared, visioning document, what we like to see or where we think we should be in this number of years. I've also seen something about, I think it was the city of Shanghai or something like that in China, doing even something much longer, like a 40-year or something like that, in which people project and say, in that period, I think my population will be this much. This is the kind of schools that we need. This is the kind of healthcare that will support it.
Right.
And they begin to break that down and grow into it.
All right. Let's quickly move on now to another important. There are quite interesting, so many interesting stories on the front pages this morning. Minimum wage, Labour FG failed to reach agreement on implementation. That's on the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper. Moving on to the front page of the Punch right now. FG Labour's talks on minimum wage fail again. That's a punch for you.
sincerely, the Nation also, I'm just here shaking my head. That's a big SMH right here. The Nation says workers for strike over minimum wage, so therefore they don't mind it. Also on the Guardian newspaper, Labour federal government meeting on minimum wage implementation deadlocked again. Please help me understand why this is so hard to implement. Okay. Aside the fact that they need to increase VAT to pay.
But that is it. Is it not money they will pay?
So you think this danced around? It's because there's no money actually. So let's keep arguing.
That is the truth.
Until 2020 when we get the extra money from VAT.
When you look at our 2019 budget again, you see that recurrent expenditure takes the entire revenue that we have projected. We're going to borrow to finance our capital expenditure. Okay. As at half year, when we're supposed to have, assuming everything is distributed equally throughout the year, we should have had like 3.5 trillion income. We have had only 2 trillion income. Let's begin to realistically question that relative to the fact that we have an increased personnel emolument to pay.
Why haven't government officials, by themselves, just step forward and say, we're slashing our own salaries and bonuses? That's a lot of money going to a few
What
set
do
of
you
people.
mean by government officials? Because
The
this minimum
president,
wage is
senators,
okay, the senators.
those senators big on this list. Security votes. I mean, we have a lot of money in this circle. Do they need Nigerians to push for this? If they're really concerned about the economy like they make us feel, why don't they come forward and say, we can save some money from here to meet up with the 3.5 that we need?
You're not going to get that. That is the reality.
Sad.
Yeah. You're not going to see a situation in which they will say, I will let go of my own salary to pay that. Rather, what you will see is let's raise additional revenue,
Right.
so that we can make the payment.
But now, some have they've made a move to argue that we need to attain some level of economic management, macroeconomic management. That there are some government bodies and institutions that can be said to be redundant, as it were. They were set up to produce or to provide some information or some product or some things, and they are not doing so in the name of lack of funding. But then again, the staff, the workers there are being paid salaries every now and again without any particular outcome, resourceful outcome from such organizations. And they're saying if you want to minimize, if you want to cut costs, if you want to prune down the cost of governance, you need to be able to look inward and prune the channels through which government fundings are being spent.
Maybe that is part of what our new economic team will help us to advise the government on, because if you are a chance, it would be nice for you to visit a place like the Ajaokuta Steel.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
I would love to go there as an explanatory thread.
It's a place that get people crying.
Yes, I really want to
after
go
the
there.
visit.
Yes.
And we have those kind of wastages all
In fact,
across.
I read that last week. I felt depressed. I hadn't gone there, but I felt depressed on my seat.
That's it. You have the Oronsoye panel,
Right.
which had made certain recommendation on some streamlining. It has not happened. And so there are wastages within the system. There were institutions of government that were set up at a point in time when there was a certain needs. Those needs are no more there, but the institutions are still there.
They're still there.
You have situations in which you have, say, a NEMA, and then we now have a Ministry of Disaster Management, something. And I'm asking myself, rather than that ministry, why don't we empower NEMA to be able to deliver more because by the time you go and look at the deliverables of these two institutions,
It's the same thing.
you'll be amazed at
It's the same thing. Well, the Minister of Finance and Budget, also another headline on The Guardian, Minister blames stagnant growth on unimplemented NESG report. She's saying that the government had been selective in the implementation of the recommendations of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, noting that the development was responsible for the non-attainment of the nation's development target since 1993, which ties to a comment we have here on WhatsApp from Emmanuel, who says it's good that the president set up an economic advisory team, but does the president have the capacity to process whatever report they present to him? I know that's Yabis, but
no, but
I'm sure
it's a valid point. But at the same time, it doesn't need to be able to process everything. These are professors of economics.
Right.
But they'll be
Even right
reporting to him.
inside this room, if they sit here and start talking something, some of us are going to be lost.
Right.
But
That
they will
is the
be
reality.
reporting to the president. If he doesn't understand what they're saying,
Yes.
what's going to happen?
They will report when you say something will report to the president. It doesn't mean it's just the president that will be sitting there.
But he will take the decisions about what should be implemented.
Exactly. He has a team. The president has teams.
Including the Minister of Finance and Budget, who is unable to implement the NESG because she's making an excuse here and saying it's not me, it's the government. Who's the government?
It goes, which is why you now have a committee talking directly to the president. So the president and his team are going to be seated, and this advisory committee will advise him. So the report will be there. So he doesn't have to be able to become an economist overnight for him to take necessary actions, because he's hearing it from the horse's mouth. The people are also on the other side are telling him this is it, this is it, this is it. He can take decisions.
You can read up some more headlines across the papers today. Over 100 local government areas in 33 states affected by flood. This is coming from the NIHSA. You can look this up. Apapa gridlock, Sanwo-Olu reps seek approval for Badagry Lekki seaports. Is that the solution? Read up more on the Vanguard newspaper. You can also find other headlines. Telecoms operators rectify 6.7 million of 9.2 million irregular mobile lines. Remember, they said they were going to
knock people off.
If you're
I was
irregular,
waiting that they knock me off.
if you're
What are you gonna do?
well,
Really?
I actually know someone who's been knocked out.
You
of
consume.
the-
You complain to the Consumer Protection.
I
Right.
will, because I did register my line.
Yeah, exactly. So here is the argument. In fact, we're out of time. Let's not even argue right now. Because I registered my line, I kept getting messages that I didn't register. I had to go and re-register again.
Yeah, sometimes you do it 3 times.
It's
and you're still
insane,
telling me
really.
that you knock me out.
It's
We're going to have
insane.
an axe to grind.
Mhm.
See this one also, the Daily Trust. Power sector crisis rages with 65.9 billion naira consumer debt. You guys are not paying up.
Air travelers to pay more as price of Jet A1 skyrockets to 300 naira per litre.
Go see all of those headlines, and we thank you all for joining us live on Facebook, YouTube. WhatsApp is really full of messages. Twitter also, thank you. When we come back, we'll be asking INEC about the controversy surrounding the issue of the server and, of course, the president's certificate. Yeah, put that in brackets somewhere. The issues around the elections, irregularities, and, of course, the judgments of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. Mr. Barrister Festus Okoye will be joining us. He is the National Commissioner of INEC, and also he's in charge of the Voter Education Commission. He'll be joining us just after the break. Gbolahan, thank you for coming in.
It's good to be here again.
Thank you. We're going on a very quick break. We'll be back shortly. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
I'm Sheriff Quadry.
From your #1 talk news and sports station. This is the Morning Crossfire with Wemimo and Sheriff.